Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Saturday, October 15th, and it's a beautifully cool morning. And I thought I would just take you on a walk around with me and see what's happened since last week. We did finally get an inch of rain a couple of days ago, which was sorely needed. My water bill little more than doubled last month because of my use of watering, keeping all these plants alive. The trees, the things with longer roots would have probably survived fine. The pears just sort of went into an early dormancy. I did notice, I can't really zoom in on it. I tried and screwed it up before. So let's see if I can just show you. I don't know if you can see. That's basically a false spring. Now that it's lost its leaves, it's starting to send out sprouts again with flowers on that tree, as well as a few on that pear tree. They're kefir pears. And I found out this morning while having coffee out here that that seems to be what's attracting some butterflies. It's bringing them into the backyard. I don't have a lot of blooming flowers here, so there's not a lot to attract them, but apparently once when they come in on those blossoms of the pear tree, then they kind of look around. Here you can see a flower over here, plumbago. That wants to be a vine, but I try to keep it cut back to a small bush. Some of the exciting news this week: my Ligularia. If you look at the bottom, it's got two flower spikes that are fixing to bloom. They're going to get about 3 feet tall and have little yellow daisies all over them. There are two types of Ligularia. There's one that's called Rocket, which has tall spires like delphiniums of yellow flowers. These have clusters of little yellow daisies, basically. And this other one that I planted this year has survived. I didn't expect it to do much for the first year. And they do wilt. In the heat of the day, they wilt, flop down, but of course they will come right back again. There's Miss Mimi wondering what I'm doing back here. The citrus is doing fine. You can see the kumquats are beginning to yellow, and the exciting news is so are the satsumas. We're still proud. This is the sunnier side of the tree, and so these are starting to turn orange first. I really want to trim that tree a little to shape it, but I don't want to do anything while the fruit's on the tree. I don't want to shock it into dropping its fruit. This is a Meyer Lemon. It's the tallest it's ever been, but no fruit this year. Here, not much has changed since last time we were here. The skyrocket plants are still there, hollies. Here's where I planted a couple of the chrysanthemums. They get afternoon sun. The purple kind of disappears in the shade, but it's a little bit of color there. And it kind of mimics the purple of the I'm trying to think of the politically correct name. The wandering dude. The purple wandering dude matches the purple of the chrysanthemums. I did want to show you, I think I did, well, I put out a short on the flower stalk of the, you're not going to be able to see it this time of the day, of the Phoenix Canariensis. Yeah, you can get a glimpse of it from here. But it's got an inflorescence. And again, it's so small, you kind of wonder, well, how does he see that? The inflorescence loses all its individual florets down there. Oh, I wanted to show you this too. The old stalks up here that I've cut off will eventually rot off the tree, or the squirrels will knock them down. And here's what I was telling you about. Here's a chunk that fell. But I want you to pay special attention to the spikes that occur down towards the bottom of the stem and are down towards the trunk. And I've got to be extremely careful because they are very sharp. There it is. It was at one time a leaf, and it folded over and became this thorn. And the nasty thing about the thorn is the tip breaks off under the skin. So you'll jam yourself with the thorn and it'll hurt like heck. And then you're going to spend a while trying to dig the tip out because the thorn will come out leaving the tip behind. So it's just something to be aware of if you grow a Phoenix Canariensis. Thank God all the thorns are up in the top of the tree. Of course, that makes it interesting when you cut the old fronds down, because you cut them, I use a saw and a stick, and once when they get loose enough, you kind of have to jump back because you don't want those thorns being jabbed into you when it hits the ground. I speak from experience with that. That's why I warn you all about it. It is a very nice palm, but it has nasty thorns. This lady palm looks okay. That's the little transplant that I put there. I must say the lady palm did really well this year. It will get hit back by a hard frost. However, I planted it in this space next to the wall or the fence and underneath the protection of this pindo palm, and that does protect it somewhat. However, I do put fleece blankets over it in the winter if it's going to be a hard frost. You know, if it's just going to dip down into the 30s for a couple of hours, I don't worry about it. If it's going to be frost all night long or projected for a couple of days, I'll cover it. However, I do take the cover off when the sun comes out. My palm grass looks like it caught there. I've got my little fountains going. I did finally plant up all of the snapdragons. I've got them in the front yard, and the excess went back here. Again, I'm going to cut them back and take some cuttings. And I planted 2 more of the chrysanthemums here in pots. Little trick, this is from this old house to your old house. If you've got some rot on the house that you don't want to look at, put a pot in front of it. Problem solved. Other than that, oh, there's some old man in that picture there waving at me. I don't know what that's all about. There's Miss Mimi. Yeah, I had a friend contact me. I have my 50-year high school reunion next year. And I found out that one of the people that I used to hang out with in high school has a YouTube channel where he sings. And I looked him up, and oh God, he aged. But then so did I, and thank God you don't ever get to see me except a reflection. And I guess really we're all reflections of God anyway, so that's all that counts. You don't need to see me. Oh, here comes Mimi. She's just about had enough out. As you can see, I'm about ready to plant up my first batch of paperwhites. I got these from Lowe's and refrigerated them. You don't have to refrigerate them. You could see I put them in the refrigerator at 9.5. But by putting them in the fridge, it allowed them to sprout. And I'm about ready to throw some dirt over the top of them. They should bloom in time for Thanksgiving. You need to count about 6 weeks back. And I'm a few days short of 6 weeks, so they might bloom a little after Thanksgiving. But I've got a bunch of paperwhites, and I'm going to stagger their potting up over the next month so that I'll have them. I like to bring them in my front porch. I did have an interesting observation this week with my wasp nest. The wasp nest is still there, and I saw an older, pretty large anole, the little gecko-like thing, crawl up to the top of the wasp nest. And it was kind of odd because all the little wasps flocked to the other side of the nest. But apparently the anole knew what a wasp was, because it just kind of looked at them and didn't actually go after them, and eventually ran down the wall. So apparently they must understand wasps, and they're not very tasty. My pitcher plant, Nepenthes, is still doing well. I did have someone come and take a look at it this week, and I forgot to mention, I may have mentioned in past episodes, I do keep water here. Normally it's rainwater, but I don't have gutters, so it runs off the roof and I catch it. And I'll let Mimi in. You really want to water your carnivorous plants with rainwater. Because you don't want the chlorine in them to potentially hinder their growth. Next best thing, if you don't have rainwater, is to put tap water in a container and let it set at least overnight, and then you can water with that. This Sarracenia is looking pretty good. It's got some dead on it. It's late enough in the fall, I'm not going to bother cutting the dead out. I'll cut it out in the spring. And as I predicted, there you see the little Johnny jump ups, kind of facing the sun. This is the sunnier side of that pot. And pretty soon you can see the banana trees are starting to turn yellow. I do take those yellow leaves off. I won't show you the end of the bananas. We're not there yet. But I got kind of a chuckle out of one of the shows I watched where up north they were putting their banana tree away, and they dug it out of the pot intact and then cut everything off of it. And let me tell you this, these banana trees are heavy as heck. They're absolutely full of water. If you cut them, they're going to basically, will actually squirt water out. And that water does stain. It does come off, but so you do need to use stain remover on it. I've noticed I tend to wear, since I retired, t-shirt with a pocket, and I hate having spots on my t-shirts. And if that stuff gets on you, it'll leave a stain, and you have to use some kind of stain remover to get it off. It doesn't discolor it, it just kind of leaves a greasy looking stain. But what I'm going to do is cut all the leaves off of these, get a ladder, and cut the stalks down chunk by chunk, because this tall plant here is probably, I'm going to say, a couple 100 pounds of weight. And the mistake that I made last year is I left these pots underneath, and when the bananas came down, I knocked them down onto the deck. They broke a few of my pots. So I've learned from that I'm going to take them apart in chunks and get rid of them that way. Oh, the other exciting news, exciting to me, is I've got some little flower buds here. It's the slightly darker things there. And I thought I had one. Oh yeah, right there. On my golden chalice vine. It is a vine. I keep it kind of bonsai'd in that small pot. And I have a cutting that I took a couple of years ago and rooted it here. I don't see any flower buds on that yet, but they do bloom around this time in the next month, and I'll make sure to take a picture of it when it does bloom. It looks like an angel's trumpet, except the flower faces upward, and it has kind of a fringed edge on the edge of the trumpet, and it smells of coconut if you catch it right as it opens. It'll open at night. And the other thing I did notice here is these seed heads I left just because they kind of looked odd on my datura, and they broke open, and I see I have a bunch of datura sprouts down there, so I may try and salvage some of those and put them in a small pot and see what they do. But that's about it for today. I'm going to get back to potting up this paper white, and what I'll do after I put dirt on it is I'll just dampen it and put it in the dark for another week or so until I start to see the little sprouts coming out of the dirt. So there you have it. Have a good day.